Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Real Truth, Real Quick, where we discuss life, leadership, and the world we live in. And I'm here today with Emma.
What's up, guys?
Hello, Emma.
Todd.
Hello, Coop.
And Cooper Wagner, myself. So, Todd, you have something that you want to start us off with real quick, following up on the previous episode we did that we aired that's no longer up.
Yes, and so what is up is a video that I made afterwards that talked about specifically how I felt like the best way to handle some of the conversation that came out of the last episode, which, if no one knows what we're talking about, it really doesn't matter, right? Because what I'm about to say isn't about that episode. It's about my leadership. Mm-hmm. Okay, but just if anybody's curious, it was about vaccines and immunizations and all that different stuff. And I don't think, upon reflection, and I shared this in that little short that I did, I don't think I did the best job of facilitating that conversation. I know I didn't. The Bible says in Proverbs 15:2, the words of the wise make knowledge acceptable. It's interesting. The day after we filmed that episode, I was actually talking to a governmental leader who was making some decisions that were affecting a lot of people. And one of the things that I said to him and just encouraging him is, hey, listen, no one expects perfection from leadership, but they do expect humility. Mm-hmm. And we believe you're doing the best you can. And I will even say, I don't think I did the best I could on that particular episode. I think I didn't set Matt up for success. And I don't think, more importantly, I set up listeners up for success. I don't think Matt did anything wrong. Matt shared his professional medical opinion and backed it up with medical facts. Now, we didn't provide counterpoints. That wasn't really the purpose of Real Truth, Real Quick. The purpose of Real Truth, Real Quick is to share what we believe the Scripture says. And that was my second mistake. I mentioned in that little short, what kind of some people have called the Brave Love replacement video, because I was wearing a Brave Love shirt. I mentioned that, typically some other folks, I mean, Coop, you might even ask me sometimes, hey, Dad, should I title this or that one? Mm-hmm. I can't remember if you asked me, but even some people were a little bothered when I mentioned that on the title of that video that, hey, I don't typically look at that, but when I did, I should have taken it down. So I was owning the fact that I did see the title eventually, mm-hmm. and I left it. And that's on me. But even some people were like, man, Todd, there you go. That's blame shifting. You blame somebody else for the title. I wasn't blaming anybody else for the title. Mm-hmm. I was just saying that when I saw the title, A Biblical Perspective on Vaccines, I just, lazily just kind of moved forward. I wouldn't say, and I did say this again in the follow-up video that's still posted, you can go watch it, that wasn't a good title because the Bible doesn't talk about immunizations and vaccines, mm-hmm. Okay? Mm-hmm. We did bring in verses that are relevant to the topic about loving our neighbor and things of that sort. You can go back and, if you're curious, I can recreate those verses for you. But let me just say this. The words of the wise make knowledge acceptable. I don't believe I did a good job of facilitating that conversation in a way that led to healthy conversation. Mm. And so I mentioned specifically in that Brave Love follow-up video that the Scripture says, be devoted to one another in brotherly love, and then show preference to one another in honor, outdoing one another in showing honor. And I really felt like the way to honor friends, and I do mean friends, that have a different perspective than Dr. Bush, and then I think even people supposed that I had based on watching the video, and I think that was reasonable. They were like, hey, Todd, I love Jesus just like you do. I'm a biblical inerrantist just like you are. Mm-hmm. I take these things seriously, and you made me feel like I didn't love God like you did if we didn't have that same perspective. So I took it down. So, I want to just use very specific words. Coop, sometimes when we're working through stuff as a family, and we just go, man, I'm sorry, right? Mm-hmm. I always just go, hey, there's a little bit more you can do. And, by just saying, I'm sorry, but man, will you forgive me? There's just power in those words. Mm-hmm. And so I do want to say to people that felt like they didn't love God and didn't love the Bible like us if they had a different perspective on vaccines. And what's really interesting is, there are people that delay vaccines. There are people that are hesitant about vaccines. What's so ironic is that's me, right? I mean, all of you, while you had some immunizations and vaccines when you were little, we didn't do all the vaccines, HPV vaccine and stuff. When they were 11 and 12, the girls, mm-hmm. we chose not to do that. So all I want to say is to my friends that felt like and perceived that you didn't love God, didn't love your word, or maybe I wasn't even sensitive to some of your feelings or some of your experiences that you equate with vaccines, and I'm not having that conversation. I could have been a better leader. I could have facilitated better conversations. I could have been more compassionate, and I could have been more thoughtful. So will you forgive me for that? And know that, as I said in the initial post that went up after that, and also in that Brave Love video, hey, I want to show preference to you and honor. And I like to have conversations that facilitate good conversation. And so that's one that I could have done a better job. And so I own that, right? So part of leadership, I think, is when there's success, you look through a window. And when there's a problem, you look in a mirror. So I don't think Matt did anything wrong. Some people don't like his perspective. But again, my asking for forgiveness has nothing to do with anything Matt said. It has to do with how I think I facilitated that conversation, and with specifically, the way I titled it, the way I, in any way, made people think there was any kind of blame shifting. This is a difficult topic. Let me just say this: people want to make good decisions, and what's really, I think, a good illustration of this right now, and the reason this needs the conversation is even if you look at the coronavirus, okay. Like when you talk to the World Health Organization, they say one thing. When you talk to Center for Disease Control, they say another thing. When you listen to what a president says with his advisor, he says one thing. When you listen to what a governor thinks, he says another thing. When you listen to what a county judge says, it's different than what the governor thinks based on information they have about the coronavirus. And so reasonable people, or at least even scientific communities, can have different opinions on things. And what I don't want to do is get involved in what's called argument by intimidation. Like, is if you love God, you're going to think this about everything. It's so important to, I just think, be wise. A fool does not delight in understanding, but only revealing his own mind. I don't like to do that. I like to facilitate good conversation. So I feel like I could have done a better job. And so in showing preference to folks, and I think just wisdom, right? I decided to replace that video with that little Brave Love short. And I just want to kind of close it with that, hey, will you forgive me that that I did not facilitate that conversation better? And show you, not just show you that humility, but do what I think is right. I say to people all the time, hey, if what I say offends you, man, and if it's rooted in truth, I don't need to apologize. But if the way I did it is the problem, let me correct that, okay? So I think the way I did it could have been done better to serve people. And so that grieves me, and there was an easy correction to make, and I ask forgiveness for those that the way that I facilitated that created issues for you. Now, when you're having that conversation, I want to say this. There's you can probably break this up into 5 different camps or 6 different camps, but I'll just end with this. I think when somebody's entrenched on a topic, and there was no question, I didn't read all the comments because a lot of them were being made when we were filming, and it ran away, and the people were commenting on comments. But when people are entrenched on an issue, I don't think that's good. I'm not entrenched on that issue. I don't want to make it look like if anybody's entrenched in the Bible, they wouldn't have discussion on the issue. And again, that's why I'm asking forgiveness, because I think that was the perception that a lot of people that I love had from that. But if someone's entrenched, after a certain while, you go, this is not a helpful conversation, okay? And some people do it because they think it's the best social contract. It's the right thing to do. And then some people are vaccine resistant. Most people that are quote unquote anti-vaxxers are just resistant. Like, man, I just want to get all the information. And Matt's right about polio, about chickenpox, about measles. Those can be eradicated. But again, this comment I'm making right now has nothing to do with vaccines. It has to do with my leadership. I'm teaching in First Thess this week, and again, we're going to be back to that spot where we talk about excelling still more. And so I seek to excel still more by doing what I could do by saying, hey, I'm not going to leave that up there. I want to show preference to people that were incited. I went back and listened to a lot of it. I was like, man, I think if people had listened to the whole thing carefully, right, it wouldn't have created some of those early conversations. But I will tell you this. I don't like the way it was titled. And I don't like that I didn't lead more up front with the fact that this wasn't going to be the definitive conversation on that. So I like real truth real quick to be real truth, and I think I can do real better. And so down it goes. So I'll improve my English
Well, let's get into it today.
And let's get into
yeah.
it. So there we go, friends.
We can, from this table, give you a collective "we forgive you."
Yes, absolutely.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
And I
Thank
know
you for leading well.
I've had personal conversations with some friends, and I love that they told me how they felt. One of the things I don't like to do is create work for people. I'm not afraid to take a position. I mean, I think a lot of the real truth, real quick positions do offend, truth offends. Okay. And again, leaving the vaccine issue behind when I say truth offends, what I want to do is just say when I offend and the way I do things are part of the problem. One last thing I'll just throw out this just to wrap it up, and then you can kind of almost make this a segment if you want to. The other thing I did is on the Jenny McCarthy thing. Jenny McCarthy, I've just said a celebrity because that's kind of, I guess, what she is. She's not to be your go-to resource probably, but just because you're a celebrity, and I mentioned specifically that she happened to be, had a past career as a woman that, availed herself to the pornography industry, that doesn't mean that you can't contribute still in and of itself, right? But I think it sounded, it was what's called an ad hominem argument. I look back at that and go, hey, that wasn't your best effort. And so off we go. And so I own that. I seek forgiveness. I'm looking in a mirror and go, hey, I think everybody needs to be responsible for the way they commented and the way they commented on comments, but I need to be responsible for the conversation that I think I could have set up better. Sometimes I can do it just perfectly, and it's still going to come at you hard, and I'm okay with that. But when I see a way to improve, I want to improve it, especially when it's an improvement around a certain degree, and I think this one fell in that category.
There you go.
One last thing I'll throw in it, if you want to. Go, and this is now, we're at 11 minutes.
And it's like Paul, one last thing.
One last thing.
One more.
Go listen to the Church Leaders podcast that I did with my friends Adam and John on criticism. And I think that's a really helpful resource. We'll put a link to that in the show notes. Again, Jesus was perfect, and he got heavily criticized. So it shouldn't surprise you that you're going to get criticism. It shouldn't surprise me because I'm not perfect. And I think I had enough imperfection in that last one that I can excel still more and seek forgiveness for whether it's my 1% or 20% or whatever it is. And so that's what I'm doing to my Real Truth, Real Quick friends.
There you go. Well, for me personally, I would like nice comments only in the comments section. And if you put your Venmo in there, I might send you a little thank you.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's so funny because, and this is good just to say about this, is that, we do want to be on the alert, stand firm in the faith, and be strong and act like godly men and women and let everything we do be done in love. And I'm just, man, we've shot hundreds of these. And it's the first one I feel like I could have been more loving in the way that I did it, and that's why I said I'm just going to take it down. I want to facilitate conversations in general in a way that are helpful. There are some ones that are out there that people go, man, I don't like what that says, and I get it, but I felt like the manner in which it was said was helpful. This one, not as much, and so I can own it, look in the mirror, and show preference and honor my Lord by just showing, the appropriate humility.
There you go. And that was, I think, a really helpful response and something that I've learned from you as I've got to grow up in your house and something I've always appreciated.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't grow up in your house, but
Emma, not my daughter.
Emma, not my daughter.
Exactly. But I appreciate your demonstration of good leadership.
Well, you know what? I'll just say this. I do get to do something that Jesus never did that is glorifying to God. And that is sometimes just say, I'm sorry, will you forgive me? I hate every time I have to do it because I love God and I love my friends. But this was an opportunity. This was outside the margin of error that I'm comfortable with. And so there you have it. Thank you guys for giving me that grace. And for those of you that I've asked forgiveness for, that will extend me that grace. And we'll wrap it up, make this his own episode.
Absolutely. So we'll come back soon with another episode, but we're going to stop here and put this one out on its own. So we'll see you guys next time.
There we go. Tune in next time for hopefully a much better done episode of Real Truth, Real Quick.
See ya.